The great crystal hall of Vex Prime stretched high above the gathered delegates. Sunlight from 3 different suns passed through the walls, making rainbow patterns on the floor. Captain Daeho Kim sat in the small human section, watching alien beings from across the galaxy talk and argue. His uniform was simple gray cloth. Nothing fancy, nothing special. Around him, the other species wore shining metal suits or had natural armor that gleamed like jewels. Some floated in the air. Others had too many arms or eyes that glowed in the dark. Daeho felt very small. The Galactic Assembly met once every year. Today they were talking about defense, about war, about who could protect the galaxy from threats. Each species wanted to show off their best weapons and ships. Kyle Thranix stood up first. He was from the Zephyrian Empire. His 4 golden arms moved as he spoke. His scales caught the light and threw it back like tiny mirrors. When he smiled, his teeth were sharp as knives. "My fellow beings," Kyle said, his voice smooth as silk, "let me show you true power." A hologram appeared in the center of the hall. It showed a massive ship that seemed to flicker in and out of sight. The ship was there, then not there, then there again. "Our quantum phase ships exist in many dimensions at once," Kale explained. "Enemy weapons cannot hit what is not fully there. We can attack from spaces that do not exist. We can be everywhere and nowhere." The other aliens made impressed sounds. Some clapped with tentacles or wings. Others buzzed or hummed their approval. Next came Vorth Keening from the crystalline hegemony. Vorth looked like a walking piece of clear rock, but beautiful rock that sang when it moved. Its voice was like music from a glass flute. "Observe our harmony weapons," Vorth sang. The hologram changed to show 3 crystal ships surrounding a small moon. The ships began to glow. They made sounds that hurt Daeho's ears even through the hologram. The moon started to shake. Then it cracked. Then it broke apart into dust. "We destroy with pure sound," Vorth explained. "We sing death to our enemies. We make their atoms dance apart until nothing remains." More applause. More impressed sounds. The delegate from the Hive Collective came forward. It looked like a giant insect walking on 2 legs, with 6 arms and compound eyes that reflected everything like black mirrors. It did not speak with words. Instead, it made clicking sounds that the translation machines turned into speech. "We do not build ships," the machine voice said for the insect. "We grow them. Watch." The hologram showed something that looked more like a giant bug than a spaceship. It had a shell like a beetle but was as big as a city. As they watched, another ship fired lasers at it. The lasers burned holes in the shell, but then the holes closed up. The ship healed itself in seconds. "Our bioships live," the translation continued. "Cut them and they heal. Damage them and they grow stronger. They learn from every attack." The hall erupted in cheers and applause. The aliens were very excited by all these amazing weapons. Then someone called out, "What about the humans?" The hall went quiet. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to look at Daeho. He could feel their stares like heat on his skin. Some aliens started to whisper. Others made sounds that might have been laughter. Kyle Thranix grinned with his sharp teeth. "Yes, let us hear from our newest members. Show us human technology." Daeho stood up slowly. His legs felt weak. His mouth was dry. He walked to the center of the hall where the hologram projector waited. Every step felt like it took forever. He touched the controls with shaking hands. A new hologram appeared. It showed a simple metal ship with fire coming out the back. It looked like something a child might draw. "This is our fastest ship," Daeho said. His voice sounded small in the huge hall. "It uses chemical rockets. It can reach about 1/10 the speed of light." Silence. Then someone started to laugh. It was a high, tinkling sound like breaking glass. Others joined in. Soon the whole hall was filled with laughter. Not mean laughter, but the kind you make when you see something cute and harmless. "Chemical rockets?" Kale said between laughs. "Do you burn wood for fuel too?" "And your weapons?" asked Vorth, its crystal voice still musical even when mocking. "Do you throw rocks?" Daeho's face turned red. He touched the controls again. The hologram showed missiles and laser guns, simple things compared to what they had just seen. "We have nuclear weapons," he said quietly, "and kinetic projectiles. Metal bullets that move very fast." The laughter got louder. Some aliens were wiping tears from their eyes or whatever they used for eyes. "Nuclear weapons," the Hive delegate clicked. "How wonderfully primitive. Like using fire to fight lightning." "My dear human," Kyle said, his voice dripping with fake kindness. Your species is very brave to offer help, but perhaps you should leave the real fighting to those who understand modern warfare. Daeho wanted to say something. He wanted to tell them they were wrong, but he just stood there, his face burning with shame. Finally, he managed to speak. "We are still learning from our betters," he said. This brought another wave of laughter. Aliens patted him on the head as he walked back to his seat. They thought he was adorable. Like a pet trying to help with grown-up work? Daeho sat down and stared at his hands. But inside his jacket pocket, a small device beeped softly. A message from Earth. He read it quickly, making sure no one could see the screen. Project Tagak ready for final phase. Phase weapons analyzed. Quantum signatures mapped. Biotechnology samples processed. Unknown threat protocols activated. Stay ready. Daeho deleted the message and looked around the hall. The aliens were still talking about their amazing weapons. They had no idea that human scientists had been studying every piece of technology they had shown off. They had no idea that deep in Earth's secret labs something new was being built, something that would make them stop laughing. Suddenly, alarm sounds filled the hall. Red lights flashed. A voice spoke in the common galactic language. Emergency signal received. Colony Nexus 7 has gone silent. All ships in the area have lost contact. Energy readings unknown. Massive power source detected. The laughter stopped. The aliens looked worried for the first time all day. Daeho touched his pocket where the device had beeped. He smiled for the first time since arriving at Vex Prime. Maybe it was time for the galaxy to see what humans could really do. The emergency meeting started 1 hour after the alarm. The great crystal hall was now filled with worry instead of laughter. Alien faces that had been smiling were now serious and scared. Admiral Vex Corlin, the three-headed leader of the assembly, spoke with all three mouths at once. Nexus 7 was home to 12 million beings. The colony went dark 6 hours ago. No distress signal. No explanation. Just silence. Holographic displays showed the last images from Nexus 7. A peaceful world with blue oceans and green lands, cities that sparkled in the sunlight, ships coming and going from busy spaceports. Then the images stopped. "We must send our best fleets," declared Kale Thranix. His golden scales had lost their shine. His forearms moved nervously. "The Zephyrian Empire will dispatch the Dimensional Razor immediately." The Dimensional Razor was their greatest ship. It could phase between dimensions like a ghost. No weapon could touch it because it existed in many places at once. It carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "The crystalline hegemony will send 3 resonance dreadnoughts," sang Vorth Keening, but its musical voice sounded flat with worry. "Our harmony weapons will face whatever threatens our people." The Hive Collective delegate clicked rapidly. The translation machine worked hard to keep up. Biofleet Alpha will deploy. 12 living ships. They will adapt to any threat. They will learn and grow stronger. Other species offered their best warships. The plasma cannons of the Stellar Federation, the time distortion weapons of the Chrono Alliance, the gravity bombs of the Dense Core Coalition. In his small corner, Captain Daeho Kim watched and listened. No one asked what Earth would send. No one expected the humans to help with a real crisis. But Daeho was not just watching. He was recording everything. Every weapon they mentioned. Every ship design they showed. Every tactical plan they discussed. His simple gray uniform hid sensors that captured data and sent it back to Earth through channels no alien knew existed. Commander Jiwoo Lee waited in the outer system in her ship. Soul's Pride, it was small and quiet. The aliens barely noticed it among all their giant warships. But Soul's Pride had the best spy equipment humans had ever built. "All fleets ready?" asked Admiral Corlin. The alien commanders confirmed they were ready. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species. The greatest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. "Then we go to Nexus 7, Corlin announced. "We will find what happened. We will stop any threat." The fleets jumped to hyperspace. Daeho watched them go, then sent a coded message to Earth. "Gone to Nexus 7, will report findings." 3 days later, the fleets arrived at the Nexus 7 system. What they found made strong alien warriors gasp in terror. The system was wrong. Space itself looked sick. Where Nexus 7 should have been, there was only darkness, but not empty darkness. This darkness moved. It writhed and twisted like a living thing. It swallowed light and made the stars dim. "What is that?" whispered Kale Thranix from the bridge of the Dimensional Razor. Dr. Tae-Young Cho, the human scientist aboard Soul's Pride, stared at his readings. It's consuming everything, he said. Matter, energy, even space-time itself. The planet isn't gone. It's being digested. The darkness noticed the fleets. Tendrils of black energy reached out toward the ships like hungry fingers. Where the tendrils touched empty space, reality seemed to crack and bleed. All ships attack, ordered Admiral Corlin. Destroy this thing before it spreads. The dimensional razor fired first. Its quantum phase cannons could hit targets in multiple dimensions at once. The beam struck the darkness and seemed to hit something solid. But instead of damaging it, the darkness absorbed the energy and grew larger. Impossible, breathed Kale. Nothing can exist in all dimensions. Nothing can absorb quantum energy. The three crystalline dreadnoughts sang their death song, harmony weapons that could shatter planets focused on the dark mass. The sound waves hit the darkness and made it shiver. For a moment it looked like the attack was working. Then the darkness began to sing back. The sound it made was horrible. It was the opposite of music. It was the sound of stars dying and worlds ending. The harmony weapons faltered. The crystal ships started to crack from their own reflected song. Retreat, sang Borth Keening. Our weapons feed it. Our attacks make it stronger. But it was too late for some ships. The Hive biofleet tried to adapt. Their living ships grew new armor and changed their weapons. But the darkness reached them first. Black tendrils wrapped around the bioships like strangling vines. Commander Jiwoo Lee watched in horror from Seoul's Pride as the bioships were consumed. But consumed was the wrong word. They were corrupted, changed, turned into something else. The living ships that had been green and beautiful became black and twisted. Their own weapons turned on their sister ships. The Hive fleet destroyed itself with its own corrupted vessels. So Min, Jiwoo called to her communications officer, send a message to all ships. This thing doesn't just destroy. It turns our weapons against us. So Min Han worked frantically at her station. Message sent, Commander, but I'm reading massive energy spikes. The darkness is moving toward the main fleet. More tendrils reached out. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years ran like frightened children. The plasma cannons of the Stellar Federation melted their own ships when the darkness reflected their fire back at them. The gravity bombs of the Dense Core Coalition imploded their own vessels. One by one, the greatest weapons in the galaxy proved useless. Worse than useless. They fed the enemy and made it stronger. Admiral Corlin's flagship was one of the last to escape. From its bridge, the three-headed leader watched his fleets break apart. Hundreds of ships destroyed or corrupted. Thousands of lives lost. What manner of enemy is this? Corlin asked. His three voices shook with fear. How do we fight something that turns our strength against us? On Seoul's Pride, Dr. Tae Young Cho studied the readings from the battle. His instruments had captured everything. The way the darkness moved. The way it absorbed energy. The way it corrupted matter. Commander, he said to Jiwoo, I don't think this is a weapon or a ship. I think it's something older. Something from before our civilizations existed. What do you mean? Jiwoo asked. The universe tends toward entropy, Cho explained. Everything falls apart eventually. Stars die. Planets crumble. But what if entropy itself became aware? What if the force that destroys everything gained consciousness and hunger? The thought was terrible. An enemy that was not just powerful, but was the opposite of existence itself. Back at the Galactic Assembly, the survivors brought news of defeat. The greatest military force in history had been broken by something that should not exist. Panic filled the Crystal Hall. We must evacuate, some aliens cried. Run to the far edge of the galaxy. We must surrender, others wailed. Offer ourselves to this entity and hope for mercy. In the chaos, no one noticed Captain Dae-ho Kim checking his communication device. A new message from Earth, just 4 words, but they made him smile. Project Taeguk is ready. Dae-ho stood up in the middle of the panicking aliens. Earth requests permission to attempt military intervention. The hall went silent. Then the laughter started again. But this time it was the bitter laughter of despair. The humans. Kale Thranix laughed until tears ran down his scaled face. The humans will save us with their chemical rockets and metal bullets. But Dae-ho just kept smiling. Because he knew something the aliens did not. Sometimes the best weapon against the impossible was something even more impossible. And humanity had spent 3 years building the most impossible thing of all. The laughter echoed through the crystal hall of Vex Prime. It was not kind laughter. It was the desperate sound of beings who had seen their greatest weapons fail, and now watched the weakest species offer to help. Humans. scoffed Kale Thranix. His golden scales were dull with stress. Your chemical rockets could not even reach Nexus 7 before that darkness spreads across half the galaxy. Admiral Vex Corlin's three heads looked down at Captain Daeho Kim with something like pity. Captain, your bravery honors your species, but we have seen what this enemy can do. Our most advanced weapons only fed its power. What could your primitive technology possibly accomplish? Daeho stood calmly in the center of the hall. Around him, hundreds of alien eyes stared with mixtures of amusement and sadness. They thought he was like a child offering to fight a monster with a wooden sword. We would like to try, Daeho said simply. Try? Vorth Keening's crystal voice rang with disbelief. Dear human, this entity consumes quantum energy like food. It exists in dimensions your people have never discovered. It turns our greatest weapons into tools of destruction against us. What exactly would you try? Daeho touched his communication device. A message appeared, just 2 words. Show them. He looked up at the assembled delegates. For 3 years they had treated humanity like amusing pets. Cute but harmless. Brave but useless. It was time for that to change. We have been working on a project, Daeho said. We call it impossible technology. Impossible technology? Kyle laughed. Is that what you call chemical rockets now? No, said a new voice. That is what we call this. The main doors of the hall opened. A figure walked in wearing a uniform similar to Daeho's but with more decorations. Captain Sung-Ho Park moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. Behind him came others. Engineer Bo Ra-yoon carried a device that looked like a metal briefcase. Dr. Tae-young Cho had returned from the failed mission to Nexus 7. His face was grim but determined. Captain Park, Admiral Corlin said with one head while the other 2 whispered to each other. We appreciate Earth's concern, but... With respect, Admiral, Sung-Ho interrupted. You do not understand what we are offering. Bo Ra-yoon set down her briefcase and opened it. Inside was something that should not have existed. It looked like a piece of space that had been folded and put in a box. It was darker than black but somehow also bright. Looking at it made the alien's eyes hurt. This is a piece of our ship's armor, Bo Ra explained. It is made from compressed human determination. The alien stared. That is impossible, whispered Vorth. Determination is not a physical substance. For most species that is true, Dr. Cho said. But humans are different. We have studied your people for 3 years. You build technology by understanding the universe's rules. We build technology by refusing to accept those rules. Sung-Ho stepped forward. Your quantum phase ships work because you understand multiple dimensions. Your harmony weapons work because you understand sound frequencies. Your bioships work because you understand genetic engineering. He pointed at the strange device in Bo Ra's briefcase. Our ships work because we understand stubbornness. That makes no sense, Kale protested. You cannot build weapons from emotions. Watch, said Bo Ra. She pressed a button on the device. Suddenly, every alien in the hall felt something strange. It was like standing next to someone who absolutely refused to give up. Someone who would keep fighting even when fighting was hopeless. The feeling was so strong it was almost solid, like armor made of pure willpower. The Taeguk is our first impossibility-class warship, Sung-Ho explained. It does not use your physics. It uses human physics, the physics that says impossible things can happen if you want them badly enough. Admiral Corlin's 3 heads shook in confusion. But the laws of reality, our suggestions, Dr. Cho finished. Your species see a wall and ask how to go around it. Humans see a wall and ask why it thinks it can stop us. This is madness, Vorth sang, but its crystal voice trembled. Yes, agreed Sung-Ho with a smile. That is exactly what it is. Concentrated human madness shaped into a weapon. Bora pressed another button. The device projected a hologram of a ship unlike any they had seen. It was sleek and dark, shaped like a knife blade, but something about it was wrong. It seemed to exist too strongly, like it was more real than everything around it. The Taeguk's armor is not made of metal, Bo Ra explained. It is made of human refusal to be destroyed. Its engines do not bend space. They simply refuse to accept that faster-than-light travel is impossible. And its weapons? Asked Kale, his voice quiet now. Spite cannons, said Sung-Ho. They fire concentrated no energy. Pure human rejection of whatever we are shooting at. Dr. Cho pulled up readings from the battle at Nexus 7. This darkness feeds on advanced energy. It consumes matter and space-time. but we do not think it can digest human stubbornness. That is insane, protested the Hive delegate. Through its translation machine. Completely insane, agreed Dr. Cho. Which is why it might work. Sung Ho looked around the hall at the hundreds of alien faces. Some looked confused. Some looked frightened. A few looked like they might actually believe. Your enemy turns your strengths against you, he said. Your advanced technology becomes food for its hunger. Your sophisticated weapons become tools of destruction. He pointed at the hologram of the Taeguk. But we do not have advanced technology. We have stupid technology. Technology so backwards and illogical that even a cosmic force of entropy will not know what to do with it. You want to fight ultimate darkness with ultimate stupidity? Vorth asked. Yeah, said Sung Ho. That is exactly what we want to do. Admiral Corlin's three heads looked at each other, then back at the humans. And if you fail? Then we fail, Daeho said. But we will fail in the most annoying way possible. And maybe that will give you time to evacuate your people. And if you succeed? Sung Ho's smile was sharp as a blade. Then the galaxy learns why you should never make humans angry. The hall was quiet for a long moment. The aliens were trying to understand what they had just heard. Technology powered by emotions, weapons made of stubbornness. It violated everything they knew about science. But their science had failed against the darkness. Their logic had been turned against them. Maybe it was time to try something illogical. Admiral Corlin stood up, all three heads speaking at once. The Galactic Assembly grants Earth permission to attempt military intervention at Nexus 7. Thank you, said Sung Ho. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Admiral, you might want to clear some space in your trophy room. Why? Asked Corlin. Because after we win this thing, we are going to want somewhere to put our prize. As the humans left the hall, aliens whispered among themselves. Was this confidence or madness? Bravery or stupidity? In a few hours they would find out. The Taeguk was already on its way to face the impossible darkness with the even more impossible power of human spite. And somewhere in the dark between stars, ancient entropy was about to learn what happened when it tried to devour a species too stubborn to die. The Taeguk dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus 7 system. Captain Sung Ho Park stood on the bridge looking at the main screen. What he saw should have terrified him. The darkness had grown. Where one planet had been consumed before, now three were gone. The writhing black mass stretched across space like a cancer. It pulsed with stolen energy from the ships it had destroyed. Broken pieces of the galaxy's finest vessels floated in the void, twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. Readings, Da-Yun, Sung Ho said to his navigator. Lieutenant Da-Yun Jung checked her instruments, but these were not normal instruments. Instead of detecting radiation or gravity, they measured things like determination levels and spite density. The darkness is feeding, Captain, she reported. It is consuming the quantum residue from the alien weapons, growing stronger every hour. Energy patterns? Asked Weapons Officer Heejin Ko. Complex, Da-Yun replied. It exists in 17 dimensions at once. It processes matter at the subatomic level. It turns ordered energy into chaos. On a normal ship, this would be hopeless news. The enemy was too advanced, too powerful, too alien to fight. But the Taeguk was not a normal ship. Heejin, Sung Ho said. What do our weapons think about those readings? Heejin checked her spike cannons. These weapons did not analyze targets with computers. They analyzed them with pure human stubbornness. The readings came back as emotional responses rather than numbers. The spike cannons are annoyed, sir, she reported. They do not like things that think they are better than us. And the armor? Chief Engineer Yujin Seo spoke from her station. The armor is offended, Captain. Something that fancy trying to scare us. The armor thinks that is rude. Sung Ho nodded. This was exactly what he wanted to hear. The Taeguk systems did not see a cosmic force of entropy. They saw something that needed to be taught a lesson. Take us in, Da-Yun. Standard approach. Standard approach to a multidimensional entity of pure destruction? Da-Yun asked. Standard human approach, Sung Ho clarified. Straight at it. Full speed. No clever tactics. Da-Yun smiled and pushed the ship forward. The Taeguk's engines did not calculate the most efficient path through space. They simply refused to let anything slow them down. The darkness noticed them immediately. Tendrils of black energy reached out like hungry arms. These tendrils had destroyed ships 10 times the Taeguk's size. They had consumed quantum phase technology and harmony weapons. The first tendril hit the Taguk's hull. Nothing happened. The tendril tried to drain the ship's energy. But instead of finding advanced technology to consume, it found compressed human determination. The darkness tried to digest pure stubbornness. It was like trying to eat a rock made of spite. Armor holding, Eugen reported. Actually, the armor is getting stronger. It is angry about being attacked. More tendrils struck the ship. Each one failed to penetrate the hull. The darkness began to pull back, confused. This had never happened before. Heejin, Sung-ho ordered. Return fire. Show this thing what we think of cosmic entities. The spite cannons fired. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, they fired concentrated human rejection. Pure no given physical form. The shots hit the darkness and made it recoil. For the first time in eons, the entropy entity felt something like pain. Direct hit, Heejin announced. The target seems confused. I think we hurt its feelings. The darkness gathered itself and struck back. This time it did not try to drain energy. It tried to corrupt the ship's systems to turn the Taguk against itself as it had done to the bioships. The corruption hit the ship's computer systems. It tried to rewrite the programming, to make the weapons fire on their own crew. But the Taguk's computers were not programmed with logic. They were programmed with human spite. The corruption tried to make the ship surrender. The computers responded with the digital equivalent of "make me." Computer systems refusing to be corrupted, Eugen reported. The main computer just told the darkness to go away and bother someone else. Sung-ho laughed. That is my ship. Take us closer. The Taguk pushed deeper into the darkness. The entity tried everything it had learned from consuming other ships. Quantum attacks that should have scattered the ship across multiple dimensions. Harmony weapons that should have torn the hull apart at the molecular level. Gravity distortions that should have crushed them into a ball. Nothing worked. The ship was too stubborn to be destroyed. Captain, Daun called out, I am reading something interesting. The darkness is trying to understand us. It is confused because we are not following any known laws of physics. Good, Sung-ho said. Let it be confused. Heejin, full barrage. Show this thing what happens when it threatens our galaxy. All the spite cannons fired at once. The concentrated no energy hit the darkness like a hammer. The entity writhed and pulled back. For the first time since it had awakened, something was fighting it that it could not understand or defeat. But the darkness was ancient and cunning. If it could not destroy the ship, perhaps it could drive the crew insane. It began to project visions into their minds. Images of hopelessness, thoughts of defeat, the certainty that all struggle was meaningless. The visions hit the crew like a wave. They saw the heat death of the universe, the end of all stars, the silence that would come when everything was gone. Psychological attack, Dr. HFY reported from her station. It is trying to make us despair. How do you feel? Sung-ho asked his crew. Annoyed, replied Heejin. This thing thinks it can make us give up. I have dealt with worse than this during tax season. Offended, said Eugen. The universe is going to end someday, so what? We did not plan to live forever anyway. Insulted, added Daun. This darkness thinks showing us the inevitable will stop us? Humans do impossible things specifically because they are impossible. Sung-ho smiled. The entity had made a crucial mistake. It had tried to defeat humans with logic. Acha, he ordered. Counterattack. Show this thing what human optimism looks like. Dr. HFY activated the ship's cultural database. Instead of scientific information, it contained every human story of triumph against impossible odds. Every underdog victory. Every moment when humans had achieved the impossible simply because they refused to accept defeat. The database projected these stories directly into the darkness. The entity suddenly found itself bombarded with tales of humans who had looked at certain death and decided to try anyway. Stories of people who had faced overwhelming odds and won through sheer bloody-minded determination. The darkness recoiled as if burned. It had consumed the despair of 1,000 dying worlds, but it had never encountered a species that responded to hopelessness with more hope. It is weakening, Acha reported. The entity feeds on acceptance of defeat. Our refusal to accept anything is toxic to it. Then let us give it a full dose, Sung-ho declared. All crew prepare for ramming speed. Sir? Daun asked. You heard me. We are going to ram this thing. That is suicide, Dr. Wan protested. No, Sung-ho corrected. That is the most human thing we can possibly do. When faced with an impossible enemy, we do not retreat. We do not surrender. We charged straight at it and hit it with our ship. The crew exchanged glances. Then they started to smile. It was such a perfectly human plan. So stupid it might actually work. Ramming speed it is, Dawn said. Engines to maximum stubbornness. The Teguk accelerated directly toward the heart of the darkness. The entity tried to flee, but it was too large and had consumed too much. It could not move fast enough. As they approached, Yujin called out from engineering. "Captain! The engines are overloading." No, wait, they are not overloading. They are getting excited. I think they want to hit something. Weapons ready for point-blank firing, Yujin added. The spite cannons are practically vibrating with anticipation. The ship hit the darkness at full speed. Instead of being destroyed, the Teguk punched through the entity like a bullet through fog. The concentrated human determination of the ship's hull was like poison to the ancient force of entropy. "We are inside it," Dawn announced. "We are actually inside a cosmic entity of pure destruction." "Then let us destroy it from the inside," Sung-Ho said. "All weapons fire. Show this thing what the inside of a human warship looks like." The spite cannons fired in all directions. The concentrated no energy filled the entity's core. For the first time in its existence, the darkness felt something it had never experienced before. It felt human spite, and it was terrifying. Inside the cosmic entity, reality was wrong. The Teguk floated in a space that should not exist, surrounded by the writhing essence of pure entropy. The darkness pressed against the ship's hull like thick oil trying to seep inside. Captain Sung-Ho Park looked around the bridge. His crew worked at their stations as if they were fighting a normal enemy instead of the living embodiment of universal decay. "Status report," he called. "Out. The armor is holding," Engineer Yujin Seo announced. "Actually, it is getting stronger. I think being inside this thing is making it more stubborn." "Weapons are ready," reported Heejin Ko. The spite cannons are excited. They have never had such a good target. Navigator Dayun Jung checked her impossible instruments. "Captain, I am reading the entity's core structure. It is not just one being. It is made of collected despair from millions of dead civilizations." Dr. HFY looked up from her station. "That explains why our attacks hurt it. This entity feeds on acceptance of defeat, but we have never accepted defeat in our entire history." Sung-Ho nodded. "Then we show it what happens when unstoppable force meets immovable stubbornness. All weapons, continuous fire." The spite cannons opened up with everything they had. Concentrated no energy filled the space around them. Each shot carried the essence of human refusal to give up. The darkness writhed and screamed in frequencies that made reality shake. But the entity was ancient and powerful. It had consumed star systems. It began to fight back with the collected weapons of every civilization it had devoured. Quantum phase beams struck the ship. Harmony weapons tried to shatter their atoms. Bioweapons attempted to corrupt their flesh. Nothing worked. The Teguk's armor absorbed every attack and converted it into more determination. "This is not possible." The entity spoke directly into their minds. Its voice was the sound of dying stars and empty space. "I have consumed galaxies. I have ended realities. You are just organic matter powered by chemical reactions." "Wrong," Sung-Ho replied out loud. "We are humans powered by spite." The entity tried a different approach. It began to show them visions of Earth, their home planet burning, their families dying, everything they loved being consumed by darkness. The crew watched the images without flinching. "Nice try," said Heejin. "But you know what those visions make me want to do? Shoot you more." She fired another barrage from the spite cannons. The entity recoiled. "You cannot win," it projected. "I am entropy itself. I am the end of all things. Even if you destroy this manifestation, I will return. The universe tends toward decay. Order always becomes chaos." Dr. HFY stood up from her station. "Computer access human cultural database. Search for responses to inevitable doom." The ship's computer, programmed with human logic, immediately found thousands of examples. Humans who had faced certain death and kept fighting anyway. Soldiers who had charged into impossible battles. Scientists who had tried impossible experiments. Explorers who had sailed into unknown seas just to see what was there. "You are right," Dr. Wan said to the entity. "The universe does tend toward entropy. Order does become chaos. But you know what?" She smiled. "Humans do not care." The cultural database began broadcasting at full power. Every story of human triumph against impossible odds flooded into the entity's consciousness. The tale of tiny Earth defeating galactic empires. Stories of individuals changing the course of history through sheer determination. The darkness began to weaken. It had spent eons feeding on despair and acceptance of fate. But humans had no acceptance of fate. They looked at inevitability and said, "We will see about that." "Impossible," the entity whispered. "You cannot fight the nature of reality." "Watch us," said Sung Ho. The entity tried one last desperate attack. It began to collapse inward, trying to compress the Taeguk into a point of infinite density. The ship groaned under pressure that should have destroyed atoms themselves. Yujin Seo watched her engineering displays. The ship's structure should have failed instantly, but instead the pressure was making the armor stronger. The more the entity tried to crush them, the more determined the ship became not to be crushed. "Captain," she called out, "the entity is imploding. It is trying to take us with it." "Not acceptable," Sung Ho declared. "Dayun, full power to engines. We are leaving. Sir, there's nowhere to go. We are inside a collapsing cosmic entity." "Then we make somewhere to go," Sung Ho said. "Punch a hole in reality if you have to." Daon laughed and pushed the engines to maximum power. The Taeguk's drive system did not calculate the physics of escaping from an imploding entity. It simply refused to accept that escape was impossible. The ship began to move, not through space but through the entity itself. The concentrated human determination of its hull carved a path through pure entropy, like a bullet through water. Behind them, the cosmic entity began to tear itself apart. Faced with beings who would not accept defeat no matter what, it could not understand how to continue existing. Its entire nature was based on the certainty that all things must end. But humans were things that refused to end. "We are breaking through," Daun announced. "I can see normal space ahead." The Taeguk burst out of the imploding entity like a cork from a bottle. Behind them, the darkness collapsed in on itself. Without despair to feed on, without acceptance of defeat to sustain it, the ancient force of entropy simply gave up. The implosion sent shockwaves across the system. The twisted wrecks of alien ships were restored to normal space. The consumed planets reappeared, somehow unharmed. The entity had been forced to vomit up everything it had swallowed. "Status report," Sung Ho called out. "All systems normal," Yujin replied. "Actually, all systems are better than normal. I think fighting that thing improved our equipment." "Entity is gone," confirmed Dr. Wan. "Readings show normal spacetime throughout the system." Heejin checked her weapons. "Spite cannons are satisfied. They feel like they accomplished something important today." Sung Ho smiled and opened a communication channel to the Galactic Assembly. "This is Captain Sung Ho Park of the Earth vessel Taeguk. Mission accomplished." "Threat neutralized." The response came immediately. It was Admiral Corlin's voice, but all three heads were speaking at once in amazement. "Captain Park, our sensors show the entity has been destroyed." "How did you accomplish this?" "We shot it with concentrated human stubbornness until it gave up," Sung Ho replied. There was a long pause. "Could you repeat that, Captain?" "We refused to let it win, so it lost." Another pause. "That is not how cosmic entities work. It is how humans work," Sung Ho said. "And apparently human physics beats cosmic physics." The journey back to Vex Prime took 3 days. When the Taeguk arrived at the Crystal Station, every ship in the system came out to meet them. The same aliens who had laughed at human technology now stared in awe at the small dark vessel that had done the impossible. Captain Dae-ho Kim met them at the docking bay. "How does it feel to save the galaxy?" he asked. "Like a normal Tuesday," Sung Ho replied, "though I admit the enemy was more annoying than usual." In the great crystal hall, the Galactic Assembly waited. When Sung Ho and his crew entered, the aliens rose to their feet. Not in mockery this time, but in respect. Admiral Corlin spoke with all three heads. "Captain Park, the Galactic Assembly owes humanity a debt that cannot be repaid. You have saved us all." "We did our job," Sung Ho said simply. "Though we would appreciate it if everyone stopped treating us like pets." Kale Thranix stepped forward. His golden scales were bright again, but his expression was humble. "Captain, I must ask, your weapons, your technology, how does it work?" "Simple," Sung Ho replied. "Other species try to understand the universe and work within its rules. We look at the rules and decide which ones we do not like. But that should be impossible." "Most things we do should be impossible," Sung Ho agreed. "That is what makes us human." Fourth Keening's crystal voice rang through the hall. "What does Earth require as payment for this service?" Sung Ho considered. "Recognition that humans are not primitive. A seat on the Defense Council, and maybe fewer jokes about our chemical rockets. Done, said Admiral Corlin immediately. Oh, and one more thing, Sung Ho added. We want to establish the Impossible Defense Corps for threats that are too illogical for normal military doctrine. What kind of threats? Asked Kale. Sung Ho smiled. The kind that can only be defeated by being stubborn enough to try impossible things. As the assembly erupted in cheers, Engineer Eugene Seo leaned over to Dr. Ha-Wan. Do you think they finally understand what humans are capable of? Dr. Wan looked around at the celebrating aliens. I think they are beginning to, but they still have no idea how stubborn we can really be. Outside the Crystal Hall, the Teguk sat quietly in its docking bay. Its hull was scarred from battle but unbroken. Inside its computer core, new protocols were already being written. Procedures for fighting impossible enemies with impossible weapons. Because somewhere in the dark between stars, other ancient things were stirring. Things that thought they understood the nature of reality. They were about to learn the same lesson as the entropy entity. In a universe governed by natural laws, sometimes you needed beings unnatural enough to break them. And humanity was just getting started.